The smell of buttercream and burnt wicks hung in the air, that oddly sweet scent of celebration and exhaustion colliding. On the dining table sat Mom's birthday cake, all frosted perfection and crowned with 60 tiny flames that trembled like nervous performers under so many watching faces. The candles blinked across her cheeks, softening every line age had given her. She'd wanted this, every child home again, sitting through one night of forced harmony, pretending our family still looked like those polished Christmas cards she mailed out each December, smiling, uncracked, timeless. "Make a wish, Mom," Victoria said in that rehearsed warmth she used on clients, a practiced charm that never quite reached her eyes. She stood beside Mom's chair, one hand resting on the back as if anchoring her claim, her diamond bracelet scattering light onto the tablecloth like shards of intention. I sat several seats away, tucked between Aunt Linda and my quiet cousin Marcus, the safe zone where family judgments couldn't hit me at both sides. Mom inhaled, cheeks puffing slightly, and blew out the candles. The tiny lights vanished. Applause filled the air. Then, as predictably as clockwork, Victoria reached for the knife. She took control of the cake the same way she took control of every room. Clean, efficient divisions, perfect slices, no crumbs out of place. "So, Rachel," Dennis said, speaking around the fork he was already polishing with his thumb. "Still doing that freelance thing?" The chatter thinned instantly, like a radio dial finding static. 14 pairs of eyes flicked toward me, waiting to see if I'd stammer. "I am," I said simply. "Must be nice," Victoria interrupted without looking up, her knife gliding through another layer. All that freedom, none of the responsibility. No schedule, no stress. I smiled faintly, lifted my water, stayed silent. "Still," she continued, handing our father a plate, "you've got to think about your future sometime. Benefits, retirement, stability. You're 32, Rachel. That old car, that little apartment, all those random projects. Don't you ever want something real?" "Victoria," Mom warned softly, though she already knew the outcome of telling Victoria to stop. "I'm just being honest," she said with mock innocence, scanning the table for allies. "Someone has to say it." We all tiptoe around her feelings, pretending everything's fine, but it's not fine. She's wasting her potential. My cousin Sarah stared intently at her plate. Dad cleared his throat but said nothing. I felt my phone buzzing in my pocket and ignored it. "I have a good life," I said quietly. "You have a cheap life," Victoria corrected sweetly. "There's a difference. Look, I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to help. You're smart. You could do something real if you actually applied yourself. Stop pretending that a bunch of freelance gigs equal a career." The phone buzzed again, twice this time, but her voice drowned out everything else. "Victoria." "That's enough," Dad muttered, but he sounded tired, rehearsed, like he'd been delivering that same line for years without conviction. "No, it's not enough," she said, rising slightly, sensing her audience. "Let me finish." She rounded the table with her wine glass in one hand, gesturing with the knife like a pointer during a keynote presentation. "I started at Morrison & Hale as an entry-level associate. Did my time, paid my dues. Now I'm Senior VP of Operations. 13 years of grinding 60-hour weeks. That's what career progress looks like." She stopped beside my chair, lowering her voice as if to deliver wisdom. "You could do it too, you know. You're capable, but you choose to stay small, to stay safe, while the rest of us live in the real world where results count." Her manicured hand landed on my shoulder, a gesture meant to look nurturing, but felt like claiming territory. "Rachel, it's time to find a real job, or even find a husband who can support you properly. A Bill or Jack, someone stable." The table went still. Even the overhead light seemed to hold its breath. 3 years earlier, at Thanksgiving, I'd stormed out after a similar speech. Tonight, she waited for the repeat performance, for me to fall apart or walk away. Instead, I carefully set my fork down, pulled out my phone, and opened my email inbox. "You're right," I said softly. Victoria blinked, startled. "I am?" "You're right," I repeated, eyes on my screen. "Professional decisions should be based on performance, on results." There, nested in my drafts folder, weighted the document I had been reviewing for 3 weeks. The termination letter prepared by my chief operating officer. I'd planned to wait until end of quarter, but sometimes the moment arrives all by itself, wrapped in candles and arrogance. I changed the effective date to today and pressed send. The email hissed away with a faint, satisfying whoosh. "What are you doing?" Victoria asked, more confused than cautious. "Taking your advice," I said. "Making a business decision." Within seconds, my phone buzzed again, confirmed. Termination processed. Severance calculated per executive contract. Security notified. J. Matsuda, HR Director. Another ping followed. "Are you sure?" "There will be questions." I typed. "It's overdue. Proceed." Mom glanced between us, uncertainty tightening her face. "Rachel?" she asked carefully. "What's this about?" Victoria's phone chimed at that exact moment, once, then twice, like a countdown. She pulled it from her clutch, irritated. Her brow furrowed, her expression sliding from annoyance to disbelief, then flushing pale as frosting. "What?" She looked up at me, then back at the screen. "What is this?" Dennis leaned closer. "What's wrong?" Victoria's voice cracked. "I just got a termination notice. From Morrison and Hale, effective immediately." Chairs scraped against tile. Confused murmurs erupted around the table. "That can't be right," Dad said, his face tightening. "Maybe it's a scam email?" "It's from HR," she whispered. "Official format, my salary, my employee ID, everything." Then her eyes met mine, finally seeing me not as an inconvenience but as a threat she did not understand. "Did you do this?" "I told you," I said calmly, setting down my glass. "I made a professional decision, based on performance and results, but you don't even work there," she stammered. I smiled, slow and deliberate. "Actually, I own it." Her mouth fell open. "You what?" "I purchased Morrison and Hale 6 years ago through my holding company when the founder retired. I've been the sole owner ever since you were promoted to senior VP. The freelance gigs you mock are consulting roles across my other businesses. 12 companies, give or take. Tech, manufacturing, real estate. The tiny apartment you mentioned is a downtown penthouse I paid cash for because I like the architecture. And my so-called ancient car is a 1967 Mustang I restored myself because..." I met her eyes. I enjoy having grease on my hands more than pretense on my record. The entire room seemed to pull back, air tightening like a string. "Rachel," Mom whispered, tears bright in her eyes. "What about the camping trips?" Dennis asked faintly. "Those?" I smiled. "Site visits. I'm developing eco-resorts. The girls you called drifters always have a plan." Victoria's complexion blanched to the color of frosting. "You're joking." I slid my phone across the table. "Here's the corporate org chart, the one filed with the SEC last quarter. My name's right at the top, under executive ownership. Jennifer Matsuda reports to my COO. He reports to me." Victoria stared at the digital lines and boxes like they were written in another language. Her lips moved soundlessly. "That means..." Uncle Tom finished for her, voice uneven. "That means every promotion you ever got, every raise, every title approval, came from my signature," I said softly. Mom wiped a hand across her face, joy and shock mixing like sugar melting into coffee. Victoria's hand trembled around her phone. 13 years of work," she whispered. "And you, my little sister the freelancer. You've been signing my paychecks this whole time." Her voice broke, and in the space between her disbelief and the flicker of extinguished birthday candles, the truth finally had room to breathe. "Not personally. I have people for that, but yes, technically your $156,000 annual salary came from my company." Dad stood up abruptly. "Rachel, this is some kind of joke, right? Some elaborate." His phone rang. He looked at the screen, frowned, and answered. "Hello?" "Yes, this is Robert Chen." "What?" "No, this is my cell phone. How did you..." He glanced at me. "I don't understand." "The country club membership. But I've been a member for..." His face changed. "What do you mean the account was never mine?" I'd forgotten about that. The country club membership I purchased in Dad's name 5 years ago, because Mom had wanted him to have somewhere to play golf, the one I'd been paying for through an anonymous trust. The membership was a gift. I said quietly. But given tonight's conversation, I think it's appropriate to let you start paying your own way. The club will send you the annual fee information. It's $48,000 a year plus monthly minimums. Mom made a small sound. This is insane, Victoria said, but she was looking at her phone again, scrolling through something. Oh my God, the lease on our townhouse, Rachel, did you? I own the building, I confirmed. Bought it 3 years ago as part of a portfolio acquisition. When you apply to lease the penthouse unit, I told the property manager to approve you immediately. Below market rate, actually. I thought family should get a discount. Dennis had his own phone out now. The car lease. Honey, the car lease just got a termination notice too. They want the BMD back by the end of the week. Or we start paying the full market rate, which is, he swallowed, which is $2,100 a month. That was also through one of my companies. I said I subsidized the lease as a performance bonus. It seemed appropriate for a senior VP, even if Victoria didn't know where it was really coming from. Victoria slowly sat back down in her chair. The cake knife lay forgotten beside the half-as-served dessert. Why? She whispered. If you own all this, if you're this successful, why did you let us think that I was a failure? I finished. Because I wanted to know who you really were, who you all were, whether you valued me as a person or only as a reflection of my achievements. I looked around the table at the family members who joined Victoria's mockery over the years, at the ones who'd stayed silent rather than defend me, at Mom who'd never quite been able to hide her disappointment in my choices. I built something real, I said. Not for recognition, not for approval, but because I wanted to create companies that mattered. Companies that treated employees well and contributed something meaningful. Morrison Hale is profitable because I restructured it to focus on sustainable practices and fair wages. We've grown 40% since I took over because people want to work for companies that value them. But Victoria just said, Aunt Linda started. Victoria said I needed to get a real job to build a real career to stop wasting my potential. I looked at my sister. You were talking to your boss, Victoria. You were telling the owner of your company, the person who approved your salary, your bonuses, and your corner office, that she was a failure who needed to get their life together. The weight of that settled over the room. In any other company, I continued, that would be immediate grounds for termination. But I've kept you on for 6 years. Kept paying you. Kept promoting you based on your actual performance, not our relationship. Because I believe in separating personal from professional. Until tonight. Victoria said bitterly. Until tonight. I agreed. Tonight at our mother's birthday party, you humiliated me in front of our entire family. Used your professional success that came from my company as a weapon to make me feel small. That crosses the line from personal criticism to professional liability. I stood up and smoothed my simple cotton dress, the kind Victoria had mocked me for wearing to nice events. Your termination had nothing to do with our relationship as sisters. It had everything to do with your judgment as an executive. You spent years working for a company without ever bothering to learn who actually owned it. You never questioned the generous salary, the rapid promotions, the below-market rent, or the subsidized car lease. You just assumed you deserved all of it. Rachel, Mom said, tears in her eyes. Please, this is too much, can't you? I've already been too lenient, I said gently. Any other CEO would have fired Victoria the first time she bad-mouthed the company owner at a family event. That was 3 Thanksgivings ago. I've given her 3 years of chances to see me differently. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my COO board is asking about Morrison Hale's situation. Should I prepare a statement? I typed back. Tell them executive restructuring details Monday. You'll be fine, Victoria, I said, meaning it. You're genuinely good at operations. You'll find another position, but it won't be at any of my companies, and it won't come with free rent or subsidized perks. I picked up my purse and kissed Mom's cheek. I'm sorry your birthday ended this way, I told her. I really did try to let it go. Rachel, wait. Dad started, but I was already walking toward the door. Behind me, I heard Victoria start to cry. I heard Dennis asking what they were going to do about the rent, the car, the bills they'd built around a lifestyle they could suddenly no longer afford. My phone rang as I reached my car. Jennifer from HR. The announcement is drafted for Monday morning, she said, but we're getting questions from the executive team. Victoria had 3 major projects in motion. Promote David Chen to interim VP of operations. I said he's been ready for months. This will give him the opportunity to prove it. Understood. And Rachel, for what it's worth, I think you made the right call. I sat in my car, the '67 Mustang I'd spent 2 years restoring, and let out a long breath. My phone lit up with a text from Mom. Please come back. We can talk about this then. Victoria, you ruined my life because I hurt your feelings. Then, Dad, this is vindictive and cruel and not who I raised you to be. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I drove to my tiny apartment, the 2800F penthouse with the city view Victoria had never bothered to visit. I poured a glass of wine, sat on my balcony, and watched the lights below. My phone kept buzzing. Messages from family members, calls from Victoria, an email from Dennis asking if we could work something out. Monday morning, my chief operating officer called the announcement went out. She said Victoria's direct reports are asking questions. The board wants to discuss executive stability, and somehow 3 business journals found out you're the owner. They're requesting interviews. Decline the interviews, I said. Promote David and tell the board I'll address them at next quarter's meeting. There's one more thing, she said carefully. Victoria came to the building this morning. Security turned her away, but she's claiming wrongful termination. Says she's going to sue. I wasn't surprised. Victoria had always fought back when she didn't get her way. Forward everything to legal. I said her contract is ironclad. The termination was justified. And remind her that the severance package is contingent on signing a non-disparagement agreement. Already done. That afternoon, Toria called from a number I didn't recognize. You can't do this, she said without preamble. I gave that company 13 years of my life, and you were compensated well for every one of those years, I replied calmly. I'm going to fight this. I'm going to tell everyone what you did. Feel free. Tell them your younger sister, the one you called a failure for years, built a successful company and gave you a job where you thrived. Tell them she promoted you based on merit and paid you fairly. Tell them she subsidized your lifestyle and asked for nothing in return except basic respect. Silence on the line. You know what the worst part is? Victoria finally said, You let me believe I did it myself. You let me think I earned everything through my own talent. You did earn it. I said, I never promoted you because you're my sister. I promoted you because you're good at operations. That part was real, Victoria. The only thing that wasn't real was your perception of me. I'm your sister. Yes. And I'm the person who's been signing your paychecks for 6 years while you told everyone I was a failure. I paused. Family cuts both ways. If you wanted me to protect you professionally, you should have protected me personally. She hung up. I went back to work, reviewed 3 acquisition proposals, approved the eco-resort project I'd been scouting, and signed off on a new sustainability initiative for Morrison Hale that would make Victoria's old apartment redundant. Anyway, the family stopped calling after a week, stopped texting. After 2, Mom sent one final message. I don't understand how this became who you are. I almost responded, almost explained that this had always been who I was. They just never bothered to look, but I didn't. Instead, I built my companies, promoted people who deserved it, created jobs, opportunities, and value. And when the business journals finally ran their pieces about the mysterious CEO who'd been operating in stealth mode 4 years, my family read about my success the same way everyone else did, in print from a distance.